Welcome back to the Think Strong podcast. Let's go. Big episode today. The Crossfit Open. Are you excited?
2026. Yeah. Ready to get stuck into this.
Do you think there'll be any curveballs?
I think there's talk of a new movement.
A new movement?
Yeah. But I think Castro came out and said it's a movement that is used within CrossFit, but they haven't used in the Open.
Right, okay.
So read into that what you will.
Time to do some digging on ChatGPT, maybe.
Yeah.
No, excited for it. Will actually be our third Open here in Bali, won't it?
Yeah.
We even did we even hosted it via means of social media on our first was that our first year? Yeah. A nice little skit. We had microphones in hand. It was almost like TSP live and direct, wasn't it?
Yeah. In like on site.
Yeah. Maybe we should bring it back.
Yeah, well, I think we should do it. We did microphone on the end of what was it on the end of? A tripod, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
The opposite way around.
Yeah.
That's how versatile we are here.
Yeah. Formative years of the Think Strong podcast back in the day. It's a different group in the gym and everything. But yeah, another year of throwing down and people complaining about how hot it is when they're trying to do a workout, which you'd have thought we've got used to by now, but seemingly not. Before we carry on and get into this episode properly, we're going to ask you to please, if you're enjoying our episodes so far, like, share it to one friend. That would be great, because we need to just keep chipping away at building these episodes. We love doing it. It's just a case of having our head down and plowing through at the moment. So we're going to keep bringing you the episodes, whether they're good, whether they are not so good. That's for you to decide. But sharing should be obligatory. So CrossFit Open. What do you think we will see this year? I know we've kind of said, do you think there'll be any curveballs?
No, I don't think there'll be any curveballs, and it'll be the same old story with people that have just achieved a skill that they've been working on for ages and crammed it in, but then get into the workout and whatever's in the workout beforehand completely fuck them over, so they won't even be able to get to the skill that they've just learned. Yeah. Pretty much the same routine that happens every year.
The old bottleneck.
Yeah,
that's so funny. I've got in my notes here.
Really?
Don't expect to use a brand new skill you've just learned.
Yeah.
As disheartening and as cynical as it may be, yeah, a lot of the time you need to have a really good level of course, strength and conditioning to carry you through, but probably capacity in that movement before it's going to be your time to shine and your time to show it off.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people unlocking new skills, like coaches saying, oh, the Open's coming, unlock this new skill. It's like, yeah, great, you can unlock the new skill, but you're probably not going to have a chance to use it. Yeah. As shit as that sounds, but should have thought about that about a year ago.
Yeah, I was going to say there's 6 to 8 months of work you could have been putting in there, but that's another story. Yeah. Maybe something we can get into later on in the episode.
I don't know if we're going to do Friday night lights again. That's quite good. It's a little bit cooler in the gym. You just can't see what you're doing because it's dark.
Yeah, that's the job. You need night vision goggles.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the kind of familiar structure of the Open, normally week 1 is a bit more accessible, and there was word of them in previous years trying to make those first workouts even more accessible. So, really basic things, dumbbells, like burpees and not straying too far away from that. And it's kind of been consistent with that probably for the last 2 years. You think off the top of my head, burpees and snatches.
Dumbbell. And then it had the walking lunge. Yeah,
and that was
bodyweight,
hang, clean and jerk, burpees and walking lunges, wasn't it? So very basic, very accessible, which I think is a good thing. Although it's like, if you're like this athlete which does high skill movements and loves training those under fatigue, which is part of the reason why I love competitive CrossFit, is the challenge of that can be a little bit like like a little bit disappointing, but at the end of the day it is for everyone.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like you should have the mindset of like that's where you're going to anyway.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? It's like why spoil the fun straight away?
And
Do you know what I mean? Because like with the higher level CrossFit athletes, they should be kind of using the open as just training to move towards their goal anyway. Do you know what I mean? It's like a bit of a pit stop. Like, yeah, this is where my fitness is at. To then go into the quarterfinals, to go into the semis, and then whatever.
Yeah, and just like at its core, it is purely fitness a lot of the time, which, you know, should be should be pretty high on your list of priorities anyway.
Yeah.
Especially when we look at CrossFit, burpees and dumbbells, like that is, you know, that's route one, so to speak, isn't it?
It's a given.
When we look at movements, I think across the entire 3 weeks of the Open, assuming it is 3 weeks, I think it is this year. Not whether they're going to bring back a 5-weeker at any point, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But we will see. I think dumbbells, like I said, toes to bar, I think are pretty reliable staple. Double unders. I think deadlifts as well. They like to throw in a row deadlift test or a row barbell test. And definitely some more complex skills towards the end.
They like a wall walk every now and again.
Yeah, they do. And I can't remember if that was, I think that was week 2.
We did, yeah, we had wall walk.
Yeah.
Row, wall walk, power clean, power snatch.
Yeah, just gradually scaling complexity, throughout the weeks. And I think we can expect to see a very similar thing. But I've got an interesting question for you, which we'll see what the answer is. For a completely optimum approach for someone who's just started CrossFit 6 to 8 months ago, how would you prepare them for the Open?
As in, if that's their goal, to just do the Open.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't do anything like too specific apart from it's always the basic movements that are within the Open, right? Like you just said, because it's going to be double unders, deadlift. We always know there's going to be like more fitness, kind of everything's fitness, but more output based in that first one as a fitness test. And then, as you said, the complexity will get into there more and more, but it would be like becoming efficient within whatever weightlifting there's going to be in the Open. So I wouldn't do anything too specific other than like their program should be structured progressively and varied as CrossFit is written. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, if you're programming CrossFit properly, then you'll be fine going into the Open. It wouldn't be like, we need to do this specific like lead up to the event. It would be like a progressive strength cycle and weightlifting cycle, and then all the fitness that accompanies that as it should be written. So not really anything too specific. If the person's looking to go further than that, then obviously like it's going to be more of a periodized approach. What do you think?
Yeah, very similar. It kind of comes back to that thing of GPP, general physical preparedness, and that being the underlying factor and principle which will serve you very well for most sporting achievements. And we said before about how there is potential like things that stray away from that within CrossFit, but as a whole it actually ticks the box really well. It does rely on variation, doesn't it, CrossFit? But if that's if there's a good amount of thought that's gone into how that variation is being applied, it can still be a very positive thing, especially when, although there's variation, you're working within a set of movements which are likely to come up in things like the Open. So, yeah, I think getting closer to the Open, it can never be a bad thing to apply yourself to slightly more to the skill side of movement economy and just how efficiently you can move away, even if something is, like you said, very much output focused, output based. Making sure that you've got technique and you've got the embedded kind of neural pathway to move in such a way that doesn't become a limiting factor, providing you make sure that you've got that exposure. Like you said, I think a very general approach is going to be suffice.
Yeah, and I think like with your experience over the years as a coach, you'll be able to dose the right amount of what's needed, a little bit more in and around it if that is needed. Do you know what I mean? But they're going to have a pretty well-rounded approach anyway. Burpees are going to come up somewhere within it. So it's like maybe pairing that closer to a more skilled element that needs to be nailed under fatigue a bit closer. Just like, little common sense coaching things and programming that you would think about, or an additional piece to someone's workout. Just same old like common sense approach to.
And something worth mentioning as well, like even though we're expecting the first week, maybe 2 weeks of the Open to be very much output based, you should, and your approach should be reflective of like just a good quality generalized approach. Your kind of coaching philosophy and things like that can stay, just as not polarizing, I'm looking for the word, just as much of a priority as you normally would, in that movement quality is like a massive thing that you need to be prioritizing, because movement economy, like we just mentioned, is downstream of that. And without that movement quality being prioritized, you're very easily going to slip into a point where you're, I don't know, becoming less efficient, becoming more likely to be bottlenecked by the way you're moving, because you're leaking power as opposed to your actual output.
Yeah.
When there is that, when we do have that potential to kind of work that out of the system by prioritizing quality for as much as possible.
Yeah, I think
as long as possible.
One thing that gets missed is like, well, not missed, but some people start like reaching for stuff, don't they, leading up to the Open, that they're not really anywhere near. And it's like, if you just spend more time doing the stuff that you're progressing with, you probably end up going to get further through the workout anyway. But they could spend more time on stuff that they're not going to even get to within the. It's not always a bad thing, I guess, because they're working towards a skill, but they're not spending time in the right areas to help them get a better result.
Yeah, no, for sure. And also maybe going in with the mindset that's not the be all and end all as well.
Yeah.
Not thinking that like you're signed, sealed, and delivered to the percentile that you reach on your first year doing the Open.
Yeah.
Like when I think back to my first time, like classic, just thinking that it's a case of going harder and harder and harder than the next person and stuff. And it's like, no, you'll learn so much from that 6 month point compared to 18 months. Like it's just a night and day difference when you compare like your mindset going into it.
Yeah.
Cool. Next thing, what can you actually expect to achieve in a short period of time? Say someone is wanting to put their best Open performance in now being the 27th of January. So imagine you're on the 27th of January if you're not listening to it. What could you actually expect to achieve in that short period of time, do you think?
Really just tolerance to something that you already have available. So like take a basic movement like a burpee, your tolerance to be able to do more of those in a shorter period of time will go up. Fitness like tolerance will go up quite quickly. And that's the difference between like someone getting actually fitter or just getting better at doing that like one thing over and over again. Probably just basic movements like that. You're not gonna, like we mentioned already, like you're not gonna learn a new skill and be able to perform it under fatigue if it's still like cognitively not even there yet. Like, and it's not something that you can just like jump up to the bar and do a set of bar muscle ups unbroken. And before that you've done like 60 burpees and box jump overs and stuff already. So yeah, like economy on movements that they're good at and practice like transitions maybe between things. That would be probably it. Skill wise, it's going to be difficult in such as 4 weeks, say.
Yeah, I don't think you can expect to learn new skills, but you could maybe refine things. So it's not to say, if you've got like say a limited toes to bar capacity, it's not that you should like give up all hope just because it's about like maybe exposing yourself to workouts with plenty of toes to bar in them and understanding how you need to move to be most efficient, to like conserve energy, and to not burn out, but also how you need to split those reps up so that you can move through a potential bottleneck in a workout, get through it and continue on with something else. And that kind of feeds into something else, which is strategy in general. You not necessarily something which should be only prioritized in like the last weeks before a competition or before a performance.
But even in a normal workout, right? They should be thinking about that.
Yeah, that's right. And the longer you've been doing something, the more you're going to be able to know yourself and pull upon that data from different workouts, which you might draw similarities to, and think, okay, I need to do this to make sure I don't burn out here or things like that.
I think people miss like putting a scaled variation of the RX movement like into a conditioning piece, but still perform it like with quality in that setting. So like you were saying, like if someone's like not particularly efficient at toes to bar and they just like instead of like just giving up, they could have that in the workout setting, just like a kip swing, but with really good quality at maybe a higher volume because it's less demanding than bringing the toes to the bar. But having that paired in the workout or something similar that might come up in the open is still going to improve the quality of like their function and efficiency down the line within the open maybe.
Yeah, building tolerance, building stamina in a little bit more of an accessible way. Taking a zoom out, almost a step back from like open prep, when it comes to acquiring skills and how you'd program in and around that, it's a very similar mindset, but it's also understanding what the goal is for that particular part of training as well. So my approach, I know that you'd probably approach it in a very similar way. If you are looking at building tolerance, building capacity for a certain movement, very often isolation is going to be your best friend, and literally having no other interference. So interference meaning different movements, different sources of fatigue. So to use an example, like if we had a class workout where it was 5 rounds for time, 5 bar muscle ups, 5 power cleans, and 5 strict handstand push-ups, your bar muscle up max set is 5 reps. Although you can do a repetition, you're not going to be getting anything out of that workout from the desired stimulus. Likewise, the flip side of that, and where you are going to be getting a great deal out of a workout, would be something like every 90 seconds 1 bar muscle up for 6 or 7 sets. Like ways that you can increase the total work that you're doing in a much more accessible way. Like you said, there's also the accessible ways of achieving the stimulus by reducing that movement from the workout in the CrossFit sense. And these are things that you should be paying attention to away from competition, not necessarily competition, but the open, in periods of time where you can afford to allow intensity to take a step back, and give yourself that opportunity to build those skills.
And then I think from there you would go more like global interference. Could be bike where you're just spinning, similar to like using that the rest of that 90 seconds or rest period, so to speak, as like an active rest, just to bring some like more global interference into play, where they have to like actually switch on and move from like one thing that they're doing to the next, and then potentially move to something more localized fatigue and interference.
Something in basically the same structure, which can be really interesting as well, which I've kind of dived into before, is lactic flushing, and how you utilize something like a C2 bike to pull blood away from a movement like handstand push-ups. You're literally pulling blood from one part of your body to another part of your body for a desired outcome, as well as adding a tiny bit of global interference as well. And you can play with the intensity of the bike to match your exact stimulus that you're looking for, But that's another progression, and like you said, we'll then take a step into maybe more mixed modal interference. Yeah, it's also important to remember that very often your first port of call is going to be like reducing time constraints and things like that before you even get to that. But people should probably remember that like heavy interference is something that comes with like a lot of proficiency and capacity as well.
You see, it's a really good point that you made about like the time domain being part of the progression first, because it gets overlooked like all the time. They'll go from like 1 bar muscle up every 90 seconds to 1 bar muscle up with a bike in the time remaining of the 90 seconds. Then they'll go bar muscle up, and then like 5 devil's press, or like, do you know what I mean? Where it's exactly the same, like a hinge, but like you're taking so much away from when there's like so much more progress to be made before, like capacity wise and volume wise, before you go and put something so locally like fatiguing with it. I think people just jump the gun there a little bit, don't they?
There's so much progress to be had in that kind of, with that mindset of just having such a much more progressive approach to intensity. And you can still be blending intervals, doing blended work, keeping the demand and the cost of the movements a little bit lower and accumulating really good quality work, to, you know, further enhance that same thing of giving yourself an accessible way to accumulate more volume. And that's something that I've done a whole lot of this year, and I'm implementing it again with the Compete program. Our Fridays at the moment are gymnastics intervals, and we're pairing things which traditionally athletes would have a much higher capacity with, something like a kipping handstand push-up that would be last in the interval, and then in the middle it's always 3 movements at this stage. Then in the middle we'd have like something like a strength movement to give that strength stimulus. Obviously it's mixed modal at the end of the day, but nothing too crazy, so like a power clean. And then before that, a bit more of a weakness movement. So we can obviously rely on our slightly more proficient movement at the end for us to be able to perform it under a bit more fatigue. Our middle movement is just there to stimulate fatigue in a mixed modal sense, and our first one is something that we're continuing to chip away under mixed modal fatigue globally, but the least out of them all. So practically, it was looking like, what was it? Might be legless rope climbs, burpee box jump overs, and kipping handstand push-ups was one we did recently. And again, that's a way to keep that intensity down but accumulate more volume. Doing like
there should always, like, it will be interesting for people listening to this that like they're probably like, oh, these guys think about what they're doing a bit too much sometimes, you know what I mean? But there should be a process and a thought process to like everything that you do when you're programming, and you should be able to answer to any question a client gives you to like, this is exactly why it's in the program and why you're doing it. Well, at least that's our belief anyway. Do you know what I mean? Which is probably correct.
Yeah. Which is probably almost definitely correct.
Yeah. But yeah, you should be able, and if you do have a program, hopefully this is a bit like thought-provoking for some people, as in like what we just went through, like the progression gets missed quite easily. It's like, maybe ask your coach like, why is this in there? Or like, if it's feeling really shit for you, then maybe you can make an adaptation yourself within that. Do you know what I mean? And like, you can be really creative with stuff like you mentioned there with the changing across the rounds or whatever it is. Within it, I've done stuff before where it was like the high level gymnastics skill, and then like, you know, we said they jump to like the double dumbbell devil press or whatever, but it would be like a certain amount of reps within that time frame, like inside the 2 minutes, rest for the remainder, and then in the next 2 minutes it would be maybe like a single arm devil's press, and then you would go back to the gymnastics movement. So you're slowly becoming more and more fatigued, but the interference isn't like directly there because you've still got that rest period after. Do you know what I mean? It's like, either that's just another way of progressing it. There's so many different ways, isn't there?
Yeah, like you've obviously got volume progressions. You can just simply build out using the same structure, adding volume. You can add intensity, you can add density, and there's so many different ways that you can plug into these things, and you can actually do it with a lot of different traits that you're trying to improve for CrossFit, for functional fitness. You can do it with squats as well. I've spoken a lot about squat conditioning and how the amount of knee flexion and extension during events, even like high rocks as well, is massively high and is such a trait that should be trained. Those similar structures and paths for improving overall capacity can all be used, but it's just a case of sticking to that protocol. Not that you have to like copy and paste something that someone's already done. It's just understanding the why behind whatever it is, a density progression, an intensity progression, a volume progression, whatever you're doing. Understand why you're doing it and apply that thing in a progressive way over time, and you're going to be improving.
Yeah. And then like when you do get into, say, the open, and you're like, fuck, that feels better. And then you're like, oh yeah, that's because I did like that density block worked for me. Do you know what I mean? Like you said, understanding why and having that realization of like, oh yeah, I do feel fitter in this setting because of the work I've done. But people seem to just forget about what they've done, don't they?
Yeah. And
it's like just overlooked. Do you know what I mean? And then they're looking for the next kind of shiny program or object to move towards.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's an interesting topic to discuss, and I think we could probably go on and on when it comes to programming. I know we've done pods before on programming processes, decisions that we'd make, and yeah, we can probably get into the weeds maybe too deep for the average listener. I don't know, maybe people want to hear it. Let us know in the comments. But moving swiftly on to our next subtopic, bad habits. How people mentally approach a bad habit. I almost wonder if the term bad habit we could just do with getting rid of sometimes in the CrossFit sense anyway.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest pet peeves is if someone says like, oh yeah, it's a really bad habit that I've got, as if it's like, do you know what I mean? Fucking do something about it. It's like, you have it, so why are you not doing anything about it?
It's not something you've been sentenced to at birth to like.
Well, it's to say, it's like, oh, I always do that. Don't always do that then.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, consciously think about what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's the attitude you got to bring to stuff. Like, it is very natural to fail in one way more than the other. Like, everyone has natural biases. Like, that's the way it works. But not reading into that and thinking like, yeah, it's this death sentence that's going to be engraved on your tombstone.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, being willing to just do the work with whatever it is.
Yeah. Find a way. Shout out to the very old episode in season 1.
Oh, there's some gold in there if you can put up with the
visual deficits.
The poor visual, and I think the audio was alright, but yeah, I don't know. Might have to turn it up to 21.
Yeah. Anything else on bad habits that you had or you wanted to dig into?
I mean, I think the industry is littered with people with bad habits at the moment. So it's not to say that that they don't exist, because people definitely have them. It's just about the mental approach behind them and how you can, if you want to keep moving forwards, which assuming most people do.
Yeah. It's like it's a definition of insanity. It's just like doing the same thing over and over again, and like it becomes very frustrating for a coach like you and me both to like have that repetitive cycle. Do you know what I mean? And that was why earlier, in the pod before, we were talking about having that like really honest approach to that conversation with someone. At the end of the day, our job is to get them from like A to B. So it's like putting things in place that are going to get them out of those bad habits. Doesn't mean that's going to eradicate bad habit forever, but we can only do our best in that situation and be honest with the person.
Yeah, exactly that. It's about that communication and just maybe getting them to understand the fact that this is an error one way or another. We're going to get to the bottom of it and leave your emotional attachment to it at the
I think that's
door.
Also a massive thing. Like, some people just can't see past the cloud of like that movement incompetence. Do you know what I mean? I've always been bad at this.
Yeah.
Well, you always will be if you've got that mindset. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, sometimes they need to hear that as well. It's like you will continue to be shit at that unless you work at it. Some people need that.
I think the more exposure you get to skill acquisition in the general sense, the more you start to realize that bad habits are just this label that people put on things.
Yeah.
And it's just a case of getting to the bottom of it, no matter how long it's going to take. You might take twice as long to learn your first toes to bar than the next person.
The one bit that's really bad is if it's come from bad coaching. Do you know what I mean? Like a bad habit.
Yeah.
Which I hear like quite a lot. It's like, oh, my coach said do this, and I'm like, where have they got that from? Like, I get everyone has different like coaching style and stuff, but some of the things are so rogue. That's where it can become quite difficult because it's like a bad habit that they've picked up from somewhere, and like you'll know and I'll know like how hard it is to unlearn a bad habit in a movement sense than it is to have a complete beginner that wants to start moving well and creating that good movement pattern or whatever it is, or even that mindset coming into it.
Yeah. And on that, where some people have bad habits that maybe a coach previously has tried to address and maybe made the problem worse by telling them to exaggerate something in another way, I'm all for that in the sense of sometimes you need to counteract someone's natural bias and give them a cue which is perhaps not conventional, but you need to almost communicate that as well so they understand that, look, this is the reason why I'm telling you to do this, because this is happening, not do this obscure thing which is gonna lead to a life of turmoil and chronic pain.
Yeah, it's very important that, I mean, we talk about language a little bit, but like the language that coaches use with people is often not thought about. Just like, don't do that, it's bad for your back. And then they just stick with that forever. And I'm like, never doing a deadlift again is a bad habit. Because like you're always going to be fragile if you don't ever train through that plane of motion. So I think that's really important as well. It's a bad habit that coaches have. They label stuff as like being bad for you. The same polarizing stuff that we talked about before, isn't it? It comes back to like that. Functional patterns. Don't do deadlifts, they're bad for your back.
Honestly, it's...
Don't lift heavy, it'll hurt you.
Yeah, exactly that. It feeds into other areas as well, not just movement, not just how you're delivering coaching cues, but the way you're approaching, whether it's learning, getting better, taking on board information. I'm sure like we probably all have bad habits when it comes to social media and wasting too much time scrolling and things like that.
I think with stuff like that though, with the language, it's for us, fitness is like our life. For other people, fitness is like a cube of their life that they go into and come out of, and then the rest of their day is like their normal life, so to speak. But if that coach has given them a bad habit within that space, every time they re-enter that little cube of their life, it's just like always there. Do you know what I mean? And it becomes like their story of that part of their life, like all the time. It's like every time they go to the gym, I don't do conventional deadlifts because they're bad for my back. It's like, no, you being coached not properly or incorrectly, not properly, good English, incorrectly.
It's bad habit.
It's a bad habit. Incorrectly.
It's just a bad habit.
Yeah. You being coached incorrectly, that's led you to having a bad back because you've performed the movement incorrectly, is like the reason why you hurt your back. It's like you have to then give them the confidence to come back to the gym, trust someone else to make them move properly, and then continue on that learning continuum. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that is as a nice way to top off the topic of bad habits. It's actually quite an interesting one because it plays so much into psychology, doesn't it? And coach and client alike. But moving quickly on to the final topic before we wrap things up, consumption of fitness. Consumption, yeah. I was nearly we're nearly 3 hours into this
Yeah.
recording session. It's getting hard to search for the words, right? Consumption of fitness and how it changes across different environments. I was having a good chat with our good friend Coach Louis Papp the other day when I was up in Canggu. He's just come from Sydney, and he was saying how the Australian fitness community consumes fitness in a very different way when compared to the UK, because although he's French, he's been in the UK for a very long time. I think it's probably something that we've noticed here. Obviously, you've been coaching in person, so maybe something you've noticed more so than me. But also maybe a little bit of a blended situation here as well. What do you think?
I don't want to stick my neck out on the line too much here, but the people from Oz that come over are often more shocked about the level of coaching that's delivered within a session. But the level of coaching that's delivered here is more similar to England than it is. Like, I've been to classes and boxes and stuff in Oz, and it's just like not delivered in the same way or at the same level as you would as we would expect. I don't know what the like underlying reason is to why, but I think there's a lot of part-time coaches in Australia, which is detrimental to the quality of the work, because it's like an add-on to their like actual career, whatever it might be. I think that would probably be the main thing. Whereas in England, it's nearly mostly that person's like bread and butter, and especially from my experience as well. I don't know if yours would be the same, and in Oz, it's kind of like a in and out job, so to speak, rather than like more community based within England. I think the community is like really, really strong. In Oz now, I think it's getting better, but everyone's just like kind of more active. They're in and out, and it's like, what would the word be?
A bit more, I want to say transactional, but it's not transactional. The way I look at it, when obviously looking from afar from people in Oz and involved with the community, it looks a little bit more like the way you would play a sport. Like go to a club or something on a Saturday morning, have a sweat, and then maybe have a beer afterwards, sort of thing, and then shoot off. And it's kind of, I think maybe that mentality of how the Aussies engage with sports maybe bleeds into that, perhaps supported by the fact that they have a more athletic population in general, so that they feel more comfortable walking into a gym, consuming their fitness, and then leaving again. Maybe the case of the UK not being so generally active means that the people that sometimes come into the gym are on a bit more of a journey.
I would definitely agree with that. Yeah. I would be like, from my experience, the overall health of the population in Oz that attend the gym is way higher. And yeah, definitely people are on more of a journey, whether it is like just being able to move their body properly and stuff like that in England. The environment's obviously very different, so maybe that's why the coaching has a bit more depth to it, because there's more to do to get a positive outcome out of that person, rather than it being that person already being in a good position. Do you know what I mean? And this kind of like, it's a bit of a poor mindset to be like, these people are already in like good shape, but they might not be moving. They don't move that well, in my opinion. Because it's often overlooked. It's like, oh, they're fit enough to get the workout done.
Yeah.
So there's not like any coaching given to that person to be like, oh, maybe do this, you'll be more efficient, and then that would help them in the longer term.
Yes, they've got the benefit of moving in a slightly more athletic way. We talk a lot about how general athleticism can form a really good foundation, and for that reason, that's like the almost detrimental fact to maybe standard of coaching. it doesn't go for every single gym in Oz for sure. Like John, for example, like we know he keeps a high standard, and his coaches are really good. But just looking at it kind of surface level, as a whole, it seems like that underlying level of athleticism is like a blessing and a curse for a lot of people.
Yeah, and the people that do it well over there, the gyms all doing a great job. But there's a lot of gyms similar to in England where things are overlooked. Do you know what I mean? Like, and if you look at it, it's always the gyms that have the part-time coaches, like the F45s. In Oz, I think they have something called BFT, which is quite similar.
I think it's F45 with barbells, basically.
Yeah. And similar thing, just like the standard of like having an actual standard of a movement is like often overlooked, because like you've obviously experienced that firsthand, but when you're working in a time domain, it can be very difficult to have some really impactful coaching, can't it?
Yeah.
It's often like when that person's resting, or like after or before the session, where you can implement good delivery.
Yeah. And having those tangible outcomes in place a little bit more, it normally is in a more established gym that understands the importance of that, translates to the clients caring a bit more as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes its own kind of ecosystem where people are aware that standards, movement standards, things like that do matter. Therefore they're receptive when someone comes along and gives them something which is going to take them or improve them.
Even if you look like down a continuum of like the sport that holds the standard, it's like if you looked at a graph and it was like movement quality at the bottom, and then at the side it was like energy expenditure, and then like the line, if it was from the graph and it was moving low, it would be like the movement quality is really high and they're using less energy to complete that task. Whereas like if the line was really high, the energy expenditure is so high for the task to be completed. So like they're wasting so much energy in that space, aren't they? Because they're not moving efficiently. But it's like if you look at CrossFit, where if you don't perform the movement correctly, it's not at the standard. So therefore, if you go into a competition, it's like no rep or whatever, because the standard is higher and the movement quality is higher. Therefore, that person is fitter because they're using less energy to complete that single task repeatedly. Whereas like you go down to High Rocks and you look at the judges letting things go like constantly, because money makes the world go round and there's thousands of people doing competitions every weekend. Those people are moving like they're using more energy to get that task completed. Therefore, they're not reaching the levels of fitness of like other people. And then you go down from that, it might be functional fitness event, like, and it just bleeds down lower and lower, doesn't it? It's just like the lower the standard of the movement that's being held to by the coach, the less fit that population of people are always going to be, because they're always using more energy to complete the single task. Therefore, their ability to complete more work in the same time domain is always going to be less. Yeah,
no, very true. And that kind of circles back really nicely to how we said that like movement economy is downstream of movement quality, and that should be like a mainstay, that should be like an underpinning principle that you're prioritizing. Even those things are going to be output based when we take a look at the Open that's coming up soon, which I also think is a really nice way to wrap things up. Another amazing episode, if we do say so ourselves.
Closing the Open pod.
Closing the Open. Nice. So thank you for your time. We appreciate your listenership. Do all the good things. Share, tell a friend. See you in the next one.